When we're riding a roller coaster, for the most part, we never want it to end. In fact, the worst part of a ride is when the train rolls right back into the station. Well, have you ever been on a roller coaster that you kind of wanted it to end sooner than it does? I know what you're thinking right off the bat. Yeah, there are some really bad roller coasters that beat you up, so of course I want that experience to wrap up, but that's not the kind of coasters I'll be talking about. The ones that I'm looking at are where the ride gets boring. It's done everything that it set out to accomplish, and now it's just meandering around, burning up time before returning into the station. I'm not going to rank my selection because a good chunk of these all land around the same spot on the spectrum of pointless endings, but the first two are more like honorable mentions, or in this case I guess dishonorable mentions. Anyways, to the list. Steel Force at Dorney Park. Sorry, Steel Force fans, I wanted to throw this one out right away because I don't think it's all that bad. I'm kind of cheating because this ride redeems itself near the end. From the first drop through the mid-course brake run, I feel like Steel Force offers minimal airtime and, well, lacking any kind of force at all. Thankfully, the never-ending run of bunny hills on the journey back to the station is where Steel Force comes alive, but for some, this might be a little too late to save this lackluster hypercoaster. Mystic Timbers, located at Kings Island. Okay, hear me out. Mystic Timbers is a fantastic roller coaster with some of the best pacing on a wooden coaster. The reason why I'm featuring this coaster on today's list is because of one thing, and that's the shed. If the shed was actually entertaining, I wouldn't mind sitting there on the brake run for a few extra minutes, but in its current form, I'm only thinking about getting off so I can either get right back in line to experience the real action of the ride, or to tackle my next coaster in the park. Instead of building another new attraction in 2022, if they even get a new ride, how about putting more resources into fixing up the shed, making it a worthy addition to an amazing wooden roller coaster? Intimidator, located at Carowinds. I think Intimidator is an overhated hypercoaster. I've been saying this over the past few months now because I guess I want to get this point across. Intimidator is a fun ride. The airtime is trimmed, but still decent and miles above anything you'll get on Steel Force. Where things start to take a sour turn is right after the mid-course brake run, when Intimidator dives down into a helix. This should be a fun moment. We've seen B&M create some nice forceful helixes on other models, but on Intimidator, it's just pointless. This is a forceless maneuver that's only good at extending the overall ride time. If you were to remove the helix, Intimidator wouldn't suffer in the slightest. Wicked Cyclone, located at Six Flags New England. I'm sure this is a controversial pick, but I think the ending to this amazing roller coaster really lacks the energy to keep it finishing on a strong note. Wicked Cyclone is one of the best RMCs in the United States, loaded with great airtime, fun inversions, crazy laterals, and snappy transitions. However, Wicked Cyclone lacks the speed needed to make that final lap anything noteworthy. If there is any true difference between Steel Vengeance and Wicked Cyclone, Steel Vengeance ends with a bang, while Cyclone putters out. I know my complaint about the ending of Wicked Cyclone seems a little petty because, I mean, it's a great roller coaster. However, I do feel it is worth mentioning because this ending could have been so much better than what it currently is. I still want to give props to RMC because they at least tried something, unlike some of the other manufacturers we'll see on today's list, where they take the safe and boring route. Jersey Devil Coaster, located at Six Flags Great Adventure. If you watch my review, you know what I'm going to say. After the mid-course brake run, are we starting to see a pattern here? The ride really loses momentum and crawls its way back into the station. Similar to Wicked Cyclone, I assume Rocky Mountain Construction didn't expect this ride to operate so slowly as it does during this final stretch of track. The layout is still solid, and in theory should be providing more great airtime. Instead, we're left with a yawn fest of bunny hills. Wild Eagle, located at Dollywood. I feel like this ride is a true example of padding the overall runtime. Instead of wrapping things up after completing that final inversion, Wild Eagle enters into this figure 8 element. It's slow and forceless. I've always wondered why not throw in another inversion instead of these boring turnarounds. The only saving grace during this part is how close the riders get to the foliage. It gives you a feeling of flying over the trees, but more graceful, which is a change of pace from the previous 4 inversions. Thunder Run, located at Kentucky Kingdom. I gotta say, I wasn't really expecting much from this wooden roller coaster, but after some much needed track work, Thunder Run is a moderately smooth woody. The first third of the ride is where Thunder Run really shines. The high speed, low to the ground turn, and 3 consecutive airtime hills will keep the adrenaline pumping. However, after that final third airtime hill, the rest of the ride is kinda boring. The remaining part of the ride lacks any good forces or airtime to make it a standout attraction. It kind of feels like the manufacturer couldn't think of what to do next, so they turned on the RCT autocomplete function to finish out the ride. Roar at Six Flags America. Not only is this a super rough ride, the layout is also super boring. I would argue that this is the worst creation by Great Coasters International. I cannot think of a single redeeming moment during its 3,468 feet of track. Roar basically overstays its welcome before even pulling out of the station. Hopefully Six Flags sees the flaw in this wooden roller coaster and lets RMC bring this coaster roaring back to life. Skyrocket, located at Kennywood. The ending to Skyrocket is probably one of the lamest endings to any launch coaster. After wrapping up a great first half, Skyrocket loses a ton of speed, and instead of sending it right back to the station, Premiere Rides drags out the ride time by including a series of S-bends and bunny hills. All these elements provide 0 forces, making me want to look at my watch instead of sticking my hands up in exhilaration. Gatekeeper, located at Cedar Point. There's something here to say about these pointless helixes. Just like Intimidator and Wild Eagle somewhat, the ride ends with a whimper by slowing down the train on the mid-course, but instead of just wrapping things up, B&M throws in one final element, a helix. Now, I do understand why these elements are here, and it's to help out with the capacity. It allows more time for the ride operators to send the next train, keeping the trains from stacking. But instead of throwing in a pointless helix, why not try something a little bit more daring, and end this ride on a high note? Even if it's another 0G roll, I'll take a slow Heartline roll over a helix any day. Lightning Racer, located at Hershey Park. I've made my opinion known in previous videos that I'm not a fan of Lightning Racer. It's an okay wooden roller coaster that's still rather smooth, but lacks any good forces. When talking about racing roller coasters, I expect them to dash across the finish line, but not Lightning Racer. During the final lap, Lightning Racer loses a good amount of momentum, making this dueling coaster crawl back into the station. My suggestion, RMC this ride that gives Twisted Colossus a run for its money. Well, that wraps up my list of roller coasters that overstay their welcome. Can you think of a few roller coasters that should wrap up long before they actually do? Tell me all about it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please click on the like button, and as always, subscribe. That way you continue to get great content brought to you by Xtreme Thrills.